So today, April 16th, 2020, we're walking down a little slope of one hill to where the hill joins another hill in a little valley. I've never been here before, and I just wanted to see how the two hills join, because obviously here's where they join, okay? And there's a little bit of water erosion, right? So we can see basically what's happening. And we begin to see a little bit of a diagonal feel to the construction. This is not a pair of natural hills, obviously, because hills were built in ancient times by advanced races. So we begin to see this diagonal feel to the joining of the hills. We saw that riverbeds and creeks here in Texas are made of hills that have diagonal seams. So we have this diagonal construction, right? So this is pure diagonal building. It's a 45 diagonal construction there. So those are stacked. Those two guys are stacked on each other, right? We're not, and nature ain't stacking anything, okay? That's not what nature's doing. More diagonal construction. So we see the diagonal nature of this building. Now, if we wanted to build a hill, we might come to the conclusion, as the ancients did, that diagonal construction is what you need. Then, at the bottom of their diagonally constructed hills, they're hills created by diagonal sections, right, of material. Then they have one molded joining section. So this whole bottom of the riverbed is one molded piece, and above it is the stacked, sectioned layers, right? Diagonally created, diagonally structured sections. So here's the one molded piece, right, at the bottom of the hills, joining the hills, strongly joining the hills. Then you have the diagonal sectioning directly above it. So it's so obvious, right? And yet the geologists would just say, well, that's just the way it happened. Really? But it keeps happening exactly that way. It keeps on happening. So one molded section, one mold, and it's like, but the tectonic, well, this isn't tectonic. This is one molded section. There's no breaks in it, there's no fractures, there's no, nothing. It's just one really strong piece, right? Oh, and look, here it is diagonally structured. So there's a 45, right? So here's where our two hills join. These are not dramatic hills, these are just sort of gently rolling hills here in Texas. And then we look over here and we say, oh, here's the sectioning of the next layer. The very next layer is a 45, right? So the direction of the creek on our right is given its direction by the meeting of the hills. They brought their hills together here, and therefore we have a valley that has been laid bare by erosion, by rainstorms, right? Then we have the diagonal building, 45 degree, 45 degree, 45 degree. So the hills give us the valley, and the hills are created with diagonal construction right next to the bottom layer, which is this one molded layer without any fractures or breaks. It's completely integral. It hasn't been, this isn't anything that has been created over time. This is not a feature of natural tectonic movement or anything. This is simply a perfectly strong integral joining. Now here we have something that looks like it might be a seam, and the ancients did have incredibly strong seams. So let's say this could be a seam here, right? Which means they stopped the building on the right and went left, or they stopped the building on the left and went right. Yeah, so that's a diagonal seam. But basically it looks like one really strong molded concrete joining of two hills right here. So they weren't precious about their valley bed, let's call it. It's now a creek bed, but back then it was a valley when they made it. They're not precious about this being perfectly flat. They didn't care. They just joined their two hills with this one piece. I've never been here before, but here you can see so clearly the diagonal construction. There's nothing more clear than that, right? And I'll just get my coat out of the way so you can see the diagonal nature of it. There it is, diagonal, diagonal. Now, the next question is, were they building hills with diagonal layers, approximately a 45, right? For structural strength, or were they building creek beds and riverbeds with diagonal layers on the banks for structural strength? So we can see this diagonal construction, so obvious, nothing more obvious, right, than this diagonal construction. I mean, there it is, 45 degree to the flow of the river. And that's what I've said about 100 times in previous Texas terraforming videos. So in my previous terraforming of Terra videos, where I've been exploring in particular creek beds and riverbeds in Texas, I've always talked about the structural strength of the riverbed or the creek bed, and that the diagonal seams of the layers directly above the creek bed looked like they were created specifically for structural strength, because why else would the ancients consistently use diagonal seams in those layers that are directly above the molded concrete creek bed or riverbed? But now I'm thinking that I should change the focus of that analysis and talk about the structure of the hills, and that the hills, which have valleys between them, whether they're creek beds or riverbeds or not, for the ancients they were just valleys between hills before the rains came, right? So the cunning nature of the ancients was such that they built valleys between hills with the diagonal seams, that they were trying to keep their hills strong with valleys built with diagonal seamed layered construction. In other words, they were building topography across continents. They were engaged in continental terraforming all over the planet on an Earth that was and is still expanding, by the way. The continents aren't expanding, but the seabeds between them, the midline rings of fire, the volcanic seams of fire in the oceans is bringing new material up. So the continents are remaining the same. So the terraforming of the continents, all the hills, all the mountains, all the what are now creek beds and riverbeds are essentially the same, except for, you know, when erosion dramatically changes that, or when earthquakes or volcanoes change the landscapes. But basically the continents are the same as they were when they were built. by the ancients, the advanced race or races who built the continents here on Terra. And that is the name of our planet. You know, we call it Earth, but the off-worlders and the inner earthers call this planet Terra. So the Terraforming of Terra is the series, the video series. So it looks to me like I want to change the focus from, oh, they wanted their creek beds to stay strong, they wanted their riverbeds to stay strong. I want to change that to slightly to say they wanted their valleys, the connecting places between the hills, to stay strong. In other words, they're pairing hills to each other. They're pairing mountains to hills, they're pairing mountains to mountains, and they're connecting them with diagonal seams. Diagonal to what? Diagonal to the direction of the valley. So if the valley's going this way, then the construction directly above the valley that's creating the valley between the hills or between the mountains is going to go diagonal 45. It makes complete engineering sense. It makes sense according to real physics, not university physics, which tells you all sorts of insane nonsense, but just real common sense physics that anybody can understand, okay? So you can understand why they would use diagonal seams. Now, all we've seen is diagonal seam construction directly above the bottom layer, single layer riverbed, creek bed, valley bed, let's call it now. So this diagonal seam construction is pervasive, and I believe that it'll be found everywhere. And I'd like to pass the baton in this video and in the next. This is the second to the last video I'm going to make in the series. There's only going to be one more video. It's going to be called, this one's going to be called Cunning Valleys, and the next one's going to be called The Benevolence of the Ancients, because I want to speak more generally about what and who the ancients were or may have been in that final video. But in this second to the last video, I'm just going to talk about Cunning Valleys. And as I said, I've never been here before, but I just thought I'd come here. Well, I'm about a mile from, no, there's a deer that just went by, or maybe it was a gazelle. They're a little skittish, but they're not really afraid of people because there's so many people and so many deer and gazelle that are always around. So anyway, so we're going to continue to do a little exploring today, April 16th, 2020. And here in Texas, in Gillespie County, and we're going to have some fun, see what else we can find, okay? Same gully, and we see this diagonal construction. Nothing's more obvious, right? So that's the, on the right is a hill, and on the left is a hill, and this is where they meet. The water is telling us this is where they meet, and we have diagonal construction, right? So that's what we have. So diagonal construction, boom, right there, right? So it's consistent. Diagonal construction, see? Let's keep going up and we can see the diagonal construction here. Just above the main layer is this layer. Is there anything more obvious? There is not. So this is the first layer, and it is diagonal. So there you go, right? That's the beginning of the hill. You can see the seams in this. So this isn't actually the bottom layer. This is probably one above, because you can see all the diagonal seams in this. It's perfectly diagonal, perfectly 45 is what I mean to say. So we have the evidence. It's right there. That's building. That's building. So there's nothing more obvious. Diagonal seam construction. That first layer above, or we might call it the second layer, since this what I thought was the first layer is more. You can see the seams in it. So that's obviously sectioned. That's a sectioned layer. Interesting. Wow. So this is Jock Doubleday reporting from Gillespie County, Texas, in a video that is called Cunning Valleys for reasons that will be clear with thought. And I wish all of you a scientific day here on Terra, which we call Earth. Have a great day.